All right. Oh, that's loud. That's really loud. That's really loud. All right. I don't know. Maybe this is not going to work. We'll see. I'm going to go over to YouTube really quick. Oh yeah, that's great. I'm responding to someone on YouTube. All right. Someone said that my new year, my last words of 2025 was very encouraging. I don't know if it was, but I wasn't happy with any of them. But I'm glad someone said that. So that's super nice of someone to say that. Oh wow, okay. My iPad is so broken, but that's okay. All right, here we go. I don't know if it was, but I was. All right. Okay, we did that. Let me go over here to sermon audio. I think we'll be the. Oh no, we're not the only ones broadcasting. Wow. There's seven others going on. So because some of these are probably doing kind of their, well, some of these are just doing their normal Wednesday service. They're just located in different parts of, well, I don't know where. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to say. Is someone doing a revival service? I don't know. I want to look at some of those, but I don't have time to do that. Well, some of these are just doing their normal. But there we are. I'll give it just a couple of seconds. We'll get started. Where are all my Canadians at? Come on. Where are the Canadians? Come on, Canadians. It's time for you to log in. This is the time for the Canadians. This is Canada's time, right? As I get close to midnight, this is when Canada turns on the Theology Central podcast. Tunes in, not turns on, tunes in. Turns on, whatever, you get the idea. One thing I'm going to have to do during this episode is not get distracted because I've got so much going on outside behind me. It's going to get very easy to get distracted. And once you get distracted, you start saying things that you're like, wait a minute, what did I just say? Because your mind is, torn between two things. But I can do this because I am a broadcast professional. No, I'm not. I am a failure with a microphone. That's what I am. All right. Are we ready? Yeah, well, the app is saying nobody is listening, but that's okay. Let's get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go live here in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good evening, everyone. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. You just did a broadcast a couple of hours ago that you said were your last words of 2025. But here you are and you're talking and it's still 2025. Well, depending on which time zone you're in, it's not 2025 anymore. And for me, by the time I'm done talking, it will be 2026. So I'm going to say these are going to be my first words of 2026. That's what I'm going to say. And I think it works, right? Because this is supposed to be kind of a transition from 2025 into 2026, and I think done in an interesting way. Now, we have kind of a unique situation going on here, right? I'm about 30 minutes away from 2026, and right outside the studio window, right behind me, there are people setting off all kinds of fireworks. So you may hear all kinds of things exploding in the background. Just think of it as Oh, it's some holiday sounds. He's creating an atmosphere. Think that I'm doing it with all of my high-tech studio equipment. Okay, well, actually, I don't have any high-tech studio equipment, but you get the idea. Just imagine, hey, we're about to say goodbye to 2025 and hello to 2026 together. Okay, we're not going to be doing what I was originally supposed to be doing. We'll have to pick that up maybe tomorrow. But I think I've got something very interesting to talk about and maybe very, very relevant to where we are as a society. And maybe it'll lead to a lot of good and interesting theological discussions. Are you ready? I hope so. All right. So let me just go ahead and say good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, December the 31st, 2025. It is now 11:31 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the Theology Central Studio, which is located right here in Abilene, Texas. And that means here in Texas, we're now, 28 minutes away from saying, hey, goodbye to 2025 and hello to 2026. I don't know, are we going to say it in such that sounds very positive. If you listen to my last words of 2025, it wasn't as positive and I was a little bit conflicted, but I think now it's kind of like, well, it doesn't matter. The year is over. The new year's going to begin and let's just get started doing what I do. And that's turn on the microphone and talk. So that's what we're going to do. And so as 2025 is about to come to an end, 2026 is about to begin and say hello to all of us. Most people are doing what they always do at this time of year, right? Counting down, making resolutions, family gatherings, parties, music, games, food, fun. Maybe they're even talking about, well, what am I going to do in 2026? How am I going to become a better version of myself? Maybe they're thinking, I'm going to try to fix all the things that are wrong, right? Because we get told that we're wrong and that we messed up and that we failed a lot, right? Maybe I'm going to fix it. Maybe I will fix it in 2026. Well, tonight, I know there's a lot going on in the end of 2025 and on New Year's Eve. There's countdown shows, there's football, there's a lot going on, a lot to watch, a lot to choose from, right? I think is it Stranger Things? I think is what it's called on Netflix. They had their series finale, I think, dropped tonight. So I know a lot of people watching a lot of different things. So I was just kind of looking around, and as part of the New Year's holiday, the Heroes and Icons channel is running a Twilight Zone marathon, a 2-day Twilight Zone marathon. Now, if you want to be a part of the marathon, see the marathon, the easiest way to get the Heroes and Icon channel, you could sign up for Friendly TV. That's FRNDLY, FRNDLY. Very cheap. They were running like a 99-cent special a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if they still have it going on, but really you can get a cheap subscription. And a part of that subscription, you'll get the Heroes and Icons channel. And I believe the Heroes and Icons channel will let you go back 72 hours and watch anything, even if you haven't recorded it. But it also has a free DVR as well. But so I have Friendly Television, one of the services that I have. So it was like, I knew they were going to do a marathon. I knew one of the channels was running a marathon. I just didn't know when it began. So I started going through it. I'm like, oh, they started the marathon. They started the Twilight Zone marathon for 2 days. The classic Twilight Zone, right? Everybody remembers that show? You're now entering the Twilight Zone. Everybody knows that, okay? Well, even if you're young, you need to go watch it as a part of your history class, and I will give you college credit for watching it, okay? So, because the each episode is so fascinating and filled with philosophy and maybe a little bit of theology and just I don't know, each one could lead to, I don't know, hours of conversation and discussion, right? So just, and if you sign up immediately, you can hit record and just start recording all of the episodes. But again, it's called the Heroes and Icons channel. The cheapest way to get it is Friendly Television. But I knew they were running some kind of marathon. They're not like, a literal running, but the network was going to show a marathon of shows, okay? And that's funny saying run a marathon when you don't really mean a literal run. But you get the idea. So Heroes and Icons are doing a marathon of the Twilight Zone for 2 days. And it started at 7 p.m. Central Time tonight. And the very first episode, when they said our Twilight Zone for the holidays marathon begins now, as soon as it started, I was like, oh, wow. You talk about a way to start a Twilight Zone marathon. Because they had queued up and they hit play on one of the most famous, maybe one of the most unsettling episodes of all time, hands down. I was like, oh, I made the right decision to tune into this. Oh, this is good. And I have it recorded. Okay. Now I've seen it many times and it's so fascinating. The episode is called Eye of the Beholder. Yeah, I believe Eye of the Beholder. I don't think it's in the Eye of the Beholder. I think the episode is just called Eye of the Beholder. Eye of the Beholder. All right. And when I saw it, I'm like, well, the timing couldn't be any more perfect. It couldn't be any better, right? Because Eye of the Beholder, this episode of the Twilight Zone, it's not about hope. Definitely not. It's not about hope. I don't think it's not about improvement. It's not even about transformation. So in some ways, it's kind of pessimistic. It's kind of like not very hopeful. So in some ways, I don't know. You may not think it's perfect. You may think, I don't want to see this at the end of 2025 as we get ready to go into a new year. I want something that will give me hope. I want something about improvement. I want something about transformation. Think of it as the opposite of a New Year's Eve message, okay? In a roundabout way, this episode, Eye of the Beholder, is about a society that has decided what normal is. Society's like, this is normal, and this is the standard. Now, if you think about it, society does that in so many different ways. Don't you remember school? The kids' school tradition, whatever the school does, this is normal. And if you reject this, you don't participate, then you are abnormal. You must go along. You must go along to get along. And if you don't go along, then you will conform or you'll be cast out. That's the way it works. Society does that in so many ways. And don't think the church is any better because we still have our own, this is what we do. And if you do not conform, you will be cast out. The conformity is what humans call for, right? And they say this is normal. Anything other than this is abnormal. You dress this way, you talk this way, you act this way. This is what you do. If you do not, you are abnormal. So this episode is about society deciding what normal is and what must be done to anyone who doesn't fit what they declare to be normal. Oh man, there's so much in this episode. Oh, I could talk about this episode for months, for years. I don't know. So as we stand right here, it's now 11:39. We are right on the edge between 2025 and 2026. We're almost in between, right? Do we call this the Twilight Zone? So for the next, I don't know. We're going to go right into 2025 into 2026. But we're going to enter into the Twilight Zone as we make our transition between one year into the next year. Oh, this is perfect for this time. All right. So as we stand right here, about to go into the new year. I know some of you are already in 2026. I'm sorry, you jumped the gun. Texas time is the only correct time. Everyone else, you make up, you just do whatever you want. Oh, see, am I calling for conformity in time? Oh, see, all right. But as we stand right here on the edge, I want to sit with this episode. I want to use this episode to transport us into the new year. And I don't want to do this as nostalgia because I hate nostalgia. Cannot stand nostalgia, right? I don't like it. If I watch something that's quote unquote an older show, I just watch it as a show. I don't care about the nostalgia of it or back in the day the shows were good, and I don't like anything like that. But so I'm not watching it as nostalgia. I just love when anybody does a marathon leading into the holidays. I'm like, ooh, this is cool. I want to be a part of it. Because am I conforming? I don't know. I just like that idea. Ooh, they're doing a Twilight Zone marathon. How many of these can I watch, right? How many can I remember when the Sci-Fi Channel used to do it? I used to do the same thing, all right? So I'm not doing this as nostalgia. And not even really as entertainment. I'm looking, especially at this particular episode, Eye of the Beholder, I want to use it as a mirror to myself, a mirror to you, a mirror for everyone to look into. Because this episode, Eye of the Beholder, I think asks a question that maybe becomes more dangerous every year. I can't speak for, I know sometimes at this hour of the evening, we have people from Canada listening. I cannot speak for Canada, but maybe for here in the United States of America, maybe it's a question that becomes more and more dangerous every year. And here's the question: who gets to decide what's wrong with you? Who gets to decide, no, that's not the right way to do this. That's not the right way to do that. Who gets to make that decision? Who? So, have you ever seen the episode Eye of the Beholder? Maybe you have. Maybe you watched it a long time ago and you forgot it. I understand. So let me take you to the episode and try to walk through it. There is going to be spoilers here. It's impossible for me not to talk about the episode and not give it away. So there will be some giving it away. I apologize. If you want to wait and come back and listen to this after you go sign up for Friendly Television, see if you can go back and watch it. You can probably find the episode somewhere else. But, you see, it was a CBS network. It's probably on Paramount Plus. You can probably watch it that way as well. I mean, if you want to support the services that are, carrying it. But I'm going to take you to the episode and I'm going to walk you through it. Not as in great detail as I would like. I could take it frame by frame by frame because the way it is filmed is fascinating. All right. So, but here we go. When the show opens, we are introduced to a woman named Janet Tyler. She lies in a hospital bed. Her face is completely covered in bandages. Right? Those bandages that wrap around, like you would associate with like a mummy kind of thing. Her entire head and face is got this bandage wrapped around it. Doctors and nurses, they kind of move in shadows. No one's face is ever shown for a good portion of this episode. You don't see anyone's face. If they're talking, their head is turned away from the camera. Or if their face is facing the camera, they're in the shadow, so you cannot see them. You see everyone's hands over and over and over. You see their hand movement. They do a lot with their hand. In many cases, you never see anyone's face. And again, if the face is even in the frame, it's going to be in the shadow or it's going to be turned away from the camera. So already when you're watching it, you're like, whoa, this is unique. This is interesting. All right. And so you know that they're setting up, a big reveal at some point. Now, what we find out about Janet Tyler is that she has undergone multiple surgical procedures to correct what is being called a grotesque deformity. Now, so you're thinking, well, was she in a horrible accident? And she has this grotesque deformity. But I think over time you catch on relatively quick. No, society has deemed that she has a grotesque deformity and she's trying to fix the deformity. Because as we find out in the episode, this surgery, this procedure, the things that she's been trying to do, I don't think it's necessarily a surgery. They've been giving her injections and things like that. I think they make it clear they can't actually do the surgical procedure. But so the treatments, I think maybe that's more accurate. The treatments, and this one treatment is her last legal attempt. This is it. Society is like, okay, we're going to try to help you. You've got this grotesque deformity, but this is your last chance. So what happens if they cannot correct, if they cannot fix this deformity with their treatment efforts? What happens to Janet Tyler? Well, if she fails, if the treatment fails, she will be classified as a failure. Gotta love that. You will do as I say, and if you don't, you are a failure. Yeah, okay. And she will be removed from the society of the normal people, and she'll be put in a community of the abnormal, the people who don't conform, well, because of, well, in this case, her looks. She's going to be exiled. Now, the doctor, whenever he speaks in a calm voice, very authoritative tones. The nurses are very sympathetic, but they're kind of resigned. You can almost feel like they know it's not going to work. The doctor seems a little bit more hopeful, but the nurses, I think you get the impression that they're not as, they're kind of like, this is not going to happen. I mean, this poor girl it's not going to work. The language is very clinical, I think is a good word, very bureaucratic. It sounds very political at times and very final. Like, this is it. This is your last chance. You don't get this, boom, you're done. You're finished. And she knows this, and she becomes very emotional, realizing like, man, I think this is her 11th attempt. She's tried 10 other times and all of them have failed. So it's the idea, well, the society has been very compassionate on her. They've given her 10 tries. So I guess in some ways, hey, so the state in this episode gives her more chances than some people will give you, right? People will only give you one chance and you fail, you're done. At least the state here will give you 10, okay? So, but they've given her, this is her last chance. And so she is so distraught that she starts basically, I mean, the show is not explicit. It was pretty explicit. She basically says, look, if this doesn't work, kill me. Put me down. Get rid of me. And basically, society has some rules that will allow for that, but they didn't think in her case they would be allowed to put her down. So, I mean, she's desperate. She's very, very desperate. And just know, desperation comes from where you have to conform, you have to do this, and you have to do this. And if you don't, you're going to be exiled. If you don't live up, you're going to be exiled. If you are a failure, you are finished. And some people will say, well, you know what? There's no point in going on. And when the bandages finally come off, it's a dramatic scene. They have some the nurses and some people standing there. The doctor, he's talking to her, saying, "Now you're going to have to remain calm. We're going to remove a little bit of bandage. Do you see light? Because it's going to be bright." And they're just slowly moving the bandages, slowly, slowly, slowly. The bandages come off, and as soon as you think you're going to see the face, she drops her head and puts her face in her hands. And then slowly, she looks up at the camera. What is this grotesque deformity? What is wrong with Janet Tyler? And when she looks at the camera, completely normal. I dare say, you could call her beautiful by most standards. She's beautiful. Now, everyone else looks shocked when they see her face. Finally, the camera shows the faces of the doctors and the nurses, and guess what? Their faces are all grotesquely, in a grotesque way, deformed. Look, now, of course, it's an old show, so, you can kind of tell they're wearing masks, okay? So, but you got to just set that aside. You got to, they don't have great special effects. This was like I don't even remember when this originally aired. I think it was 1960. I could look up the original date when it aired. So, but you got to set that aside. But their face they are grotesquely deformed. And you're like, well, they're looking at her like, you're not right. You're not normal. And she looks at them and, well, it gets really weird. And we'll talk more about this in a minute. But their faces are horrifying looking. You're like, what is wrong with these people? But everyone thinks she's the one who's deformed. Everyone thinks she's the one who's grotesque. So the doctors, the nurses, I think the system, in fact, they have, which is kind of interesting, like a flat screen television, a screen showing their political leader, the leader of this society, and he's distorted as well. So everyone, the doctor is distorted, the nurses are distorted, the leader of this society is distorted. All their faces are deformed and distorted and messed up. See, in their world, they're all normal. And, well, poor Janet Tyler, she's not normal. And because she does not conform, because she does not, well, do as they tell her to look, she's got to be removed. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly how it all plays out. I mean, if you want to watch it, but that's the episode. That's the big reveal, all right? That's the big reveal. And of course, she takes off running. They chase her because, she's got to go. She's got to be removed. Don't think it's going to end with, she escapes and it's a happy ending. No, she ultimately runs into the person that is the leader of now. I guess I'll give you the information. The community of the abnormal, the deformed, the ones that are distorted and wrong, because she's got to go there because she can't stay in society anymore. They gave her 11 chances. I think, and you may disagree, I don't think the episode hinges on the twist. I think everyone will say, that's what it hinges on. It hinges on the twist. I don't think the episode does. I think if you, because the big reveal, you're like, that's what the episode is about. I don't think so. I think the twist forces the question. I think the twist forces us to face a question that maybe everyone wants to avoid. Maybe the episode never really answers the question. It's just the question is clearly there. I think the twist only makes you go back to the question, and that question is, who defines normal? Who decides what is acceptable? Who decides what is healthy? Who decides what is beautiful? Who decides what is good? Is it the majority? Is it the minority? Is it the state? Is it religion? And then which religion gets to decide that? Is it Republicans? Is it Democrats? Who gets to make the decisions? Typically, majority. The majority will, whatever society as a majority does, they typically will ultimately win out. Unless the minority can fight and fight and fight and ultimately overcome. But typically the majority is going to make the decision. And what happens if you don't like someone else's decision? You will say they are wrong. But the society will have to conform at to some level. And the majority typically will rule, and especially within a work or school or church setting. But who gets to really make that decision? Who? Who gets to decide which books are good and which books are bad? Who gets to decide which music is good and which music is bad? Who gets to make the decisions? Because if you make the decisions that book is wrong, well, someone could come along and say, your book is wrong. That Bible you read, they could say that that's psychologically damaging to children and messed up and twisted and not right. Who gets to decide? Who? And once those definitions are made, this is right, this is right, this is acceptable. What happens to the people who don't meet that supposed decision or standard or ideal? To me, that's the real horror of the episode. Not the faces, not even the treatment. I don't think it's a surgery. I think he said that she did not qualify for the surgery. So I got to make sure I say treatment if I'm trying to be as accurate as I can with the episode. All right. Now I've only seen it a couple of times and it's been a long time in between. So if I got that wrong, some hardcore Twilight Zone fan will be like, no, it was a surgery. I don't think it was. All right. But I don't think the real horror of the episode, I don't think it's the faces. I don't think it's the treatment. But I think it's the certainty. They just are so certain that you're grotesquely deformed. You're messed up. See, and I think this is kind of perfect for a New Year's Eve episode. I don't know who chose this for the first episode for the Heroes and Icons channel marathon. Whoever it was, I think is brilliant. I don't know who they are. Whoever you are out there, you are a genius, okay? I don't know if they just gave it to AI and AI chose. Whoever decided to put this as the first episode for the marathon, you are brilliant. Because we're just a couple of minutes away from saying Happy New Year here in West Texas. Just a few minutes away. And every new year, are we kind of not told the same version of this story? You need to change. You need to improve. You need to fix what's wrong with you. I mean, you failed in 2025. You messed up and you've been exiled. You've been thrown in the trash. I talked about this in my last episode. You got to do this. You got to look like this. You got to act like this. You got to do this. You got to do this. And look, it happens on television. Even in what was hilarious is even in this episode, one of the commercials was for Pilates gym or Pilates class, Pilates. And, hey, you can do it. Your body and your body and your body. And you all need to go here and do Pilates so that you can look better and you can all look right. There were multiple commercials. That, of course, was trying to get everyone, go sign up for the new year. Get yourself ready. Do this. Eat better. Drink better. Act better. Walk better. Run better. Look better. Get your hair better. Do everything better. And sometimes the message is gentle. Sometimes it's motivational. Sometimes it's spiritual because the church is doing the same thing. A lot of the New Year's Eve messages, in fact, maybe we'll review some. We'll go back and look at some of how the churches that had services tonight, it'll be like in 2026, make sure you read your Bible, make sure you pray, make sure you fast, make sure you go to church, make sure you join a small group, make sure you do blah, 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 blah. Do this, 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 do this. Repent of all the sin and all the failure you did in 2025 and be committed in 2026 that you're going to walk with Jesus and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. Conform, do what we tell you. Okay, maybe not quite that bad, but it's pretty bad. So the message can be gentle, the message can be motivational, or the message can be spiritual. But the episode of The Twilight Zone, The Eye of the Beholder, ask kind of a quieter, maybe a more disturbing question. What if the problem isn't you, but it's the system telling you that you're the failure and that you're broken? What if the problem is not you? Now, I have always struggled. I have labeled myself since I was a little kid that I am an anti-conformist. I don't like when people like, this is what you do. You grow up in Texas, you have to root for the Cowboys. According to whom? Why? You have to go for the Texas Rangers. Why? Because you live here, you have to do this? Because you live here, you have to talk this way? Because you live here, you have to lie? Why? Who made the rules? And when you get to school, well, then you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to cheer for your school, and you're supposed to go to the pep rally, and you're supposed to do this. Why? You're supposed to do this activity. No, according to whom? Who made the rules? And so now, this is still controlling, but because what I would have a tendency to do if they say A, I'm doing B, which that's still allowing them to control me because I'm just doing the opposite to do the opposite. And what I should have done is just did what I wanted to do irregardless. Sometimes I just did the opposite. But I'll never forget the big one. At my school, Jim Ned High School. And they should bear the shame of this, all right? So I'm going to name them. Jim Ned High School. It's the most ridiculous thing. From the first day, from my freshman year, I came in that parking lot, and when I walked into it was kind of like a lobby. When you first walked into the school, there was this like lobby right there, and then you had hallways to your left and to your right. I think you had the gymnasium in front. It wasn't a very big school, but as soon as you walked in, guess what you walked into as a freshman? There was all these seniors there saying, "Get down and push a penny with your nose." And they were making you do all these things, this hazing. And I was like, I'm not doing one stinking thing you people tell me to do. I don't care. I'm not. I basically declared war right there. You are not telling me what to do under no circumstance. I'm not going to push a penny. I'm not carrying your books. I'm not playing your stinking reindeer games. Leave me alone. You're all basically, I was not nice. You're basically all dumb, and I'm not playing along. So that put a target on my back, which then basically did not make my life go well. But I had no idea what was coming. This school had something they called Slave Day. Now just try to wrap your mind around this. Slave Day? Slaves, the United States of America, the slave trade, where we sold human beings as property, treating them as less than human, denying them basic rights, not treating them as equals, even though we supposedly said all men are created equal, except for people who have dark skin and come from Africa. I don't know. Crazy. And those are the fireworks going off in the background because it's midnight. All right. So Happy New Year's, everyone. But the school had Slave Day. And this is what happened. This is insane. The freshmen, you show up at school on that particular day, Slave Day. You were to wear, I believe, jeans and a white shirt. You were taken into the gymnasium. This is insane. You were then taken, and there was this stand in the gymnasium. And you were brought to the stand, and in each, one at a time, you would then climb up on the stand where you're standing in front of, and all the students are in the bleachers. And you're standing there in the gym on this raised platform, very tall, high up. You're looking almost down at everybody. They're looking at you, and people place bids to buy you as their slave. And then they would make you do once all the bidding was done, everyone could bid $10, no $20, no $50. And the whole thing is just so evil. There's not even words for this. I can't even believe this happened. And then you're purchased, and then they're going to the next day you have to show up, and you're now this person's slave. And for that entire day, they could completely and utterly humiliate you, make you do the most embarrassing things. Things got so out of hand. The things they did to people, it was insane. But I said, no. You are not going to make me do this under any way. And I was threatened by the upperclassmen. I was going to be beaten. I was going to have ribs broken. They were going to break my nose. I'm like, I don't care. No one is making me do this. It got so bad. The threats got so bad that literally 30 minutes before we were taken to the gymnasium, because I'm like, I'm not even walking in. I'll go to the library. You can kick me out of school. I'm not participating in this. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. The teachers pulled me out and said, look, we can't guarantee your safety if you don't do this. And so they said, well, this is what we've done. We have this much money. We will purchase you. And then we'll just make you do, ridiculous things. So that's how I participated. You talk about conformity. You talk about the system telling me I have to do something. There wasn't anything wrong with me. The problem was the system. The system was wrong, not me. The system was wrong, not me. And it did not take long that many times once I became a Christian and got into Christianity, some of the same things. You will do this and you will do this. And I'm like, I'm not going to conform. And to me, I don't think I was the problem. I think the system was the problem. Now, I'm not saying I was never the problem. I'm not saying that, because I'm a human being and I make mistakes and I fail. But so many times people hold you to a standard And then they say, you do this, and if you don't fail, you're going to pay for it. And they're like, why is that the standard? And of course, in many cases, there's not even any grace in some of these situations. So what happens if you're not the problem? The system is the problem. In some ways, this episode exposes maybe the kind of the dark side of a lot of this, right? Because improvement can easily become conformity, and conformity can easily become law. I think sometimes, this could be controversial. I'm going to throw this out as a hypothesis. Please do not say that I'm being dogmatic about it. I think a lot of times people show up in couples therapy, marriage therapy, and the goal is they want the therapist to tell the other person that they need to conform, basically. They need to change to the other person's standard or liking. You're not doing what I want you to do. You need to change. And then the other person's like, well, they're not doing what I want. They need to change. Now, obviously, a therapist in many cases have to say, whoa, maybe both of you are wrong, and try to fix that. But I think a lot of times that's what we want. Usually when people come in for some kind of conflict therapy, what they're wanting the other person to be perceived as wrong, they have to change, they have to conform. And if that person doesn't change or conform, then they're going to be cast aside. Because in many of those cases, someone holds that like, oh, you didn't do this, you are done. There is no second chance. There's no grace. There's no mercy. There's nothing you can do. You can beg, you can plead, you can crawl, you can grovel. It doesn't matter. So what happens if maybe the problem isn't you? Maybe the problem is the system or the other situation. Because improvement, many times, it becomes conformity to something. And that conformity easily becomes law. And once improvement becomes law, then failure becomes guilt. And guilt always demands punishment. That's the way it works. See, in the episode, hey, Janet, no. You are grotesquely deformed because we have decided that this is the standard. You don't meet the standard. You must conform. And if you do not improve, well, that improvement becomes a law. You have to. And you fail, well, that leads to guilt. And then guilt demands punishment. Conformity, you can say improvement, and this is kind of with the self-help stuff. Improvement almost becomes a law. Failure becomes guilt. And then that guilt will demand punishment. Now, I'm not going to list all of the headlines of 2025. You probably know, if you paid any attention to 2025 in all the news. Well, what we've seen over and over again is public definitions of acceptable. This is acceptable. This is not acceptable. Moral certainty trying to be enforced not by, well, you struggling with God and struggling with a moral standard, but a moral certainty or maybe I should say this, public definitions of what is acceptable. We saw that in 2025, and a moral certainty enforced socially or enforced politically. Exile, you are gone, is almost masqueraded as accountability or acceptable. You shame other people, and this is dressed up as righteousness. And just keeping your mouth quiet is almost seen as virtue. So I think the most unsettling thing about Eye of the Beholder, now, it is kind of it does give you an image of an authoritarian future. It does demonstrate that because it shows the political leader. And if I could get his speech, he starts making a speech, especially when Janet is trying to run and try to get away. He's making this speech, and it's like these scenes going from her running back to the political leader on the screen giving his speech. But it definitely gives us this image of an authoritarian government, an authoritarian future. And man, who wants an authoritarian government? I do not. I do not want a tyrant, an authoritarian government. I don't want a king. I don't want any of that nonsense, all right? I don't want a dictator, even if it's for a day. I don't want any of that. So maybe the most unsettling thing is it shows us how ordinary an authoritarian mindset, this kind of way of thinking, can just it looks ordinary. Hey, we decide what's ordinary. We decide what's normal. So it doesn't have, in a sense, villains, twirling their mustache. What are we going to do? Ha, 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 ha. I guess in a way, the political leader serves as a tyrant, but the doctors come across as just being ordinary in that sense. See, the doctors are just doing their jobs. They're just enforcing policies. The rules are just being followed. And I think that's exactly how systems work. Just like in the public, I went to a public school and them doing Slave Day. It was just seen as ordinary, normal. And the teachers, none of the teachers stood up against it. They just tried to we've got to work within the system. A teacher should have been like, we're doing Slave Day? Are you people out of your ever-living minds? Okay. What kind of racist nonsense is this garbage? But if you spoke against it, what's wrong with you? I probably would have been called a liberal. I don't know. It was disgusting. I can't believe it ever happened. But that's what happens when the system works. But I think everyone who watches the episode, you're going to remember the reveal when she takes the bandage off. Whoa, she's not grotesque. Look at the doctors and nurses. But I think that's kind of missing the point. To me, the real tragedy in the episode is Janet herself. Like, I want to reach through the screen and go, Janet, what are you doing? Stop. Because she believes the system. She believes the diagnosis. She accepts the verdict. She consents to the surgery, or the treatments. Again, I don't think it's surgery. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then that's the 11th time, I think, is the final one. Because she is accepting that their diagnosis, that she is wrong. She's in the wrong. She's messed up. She's accepting their verdict. She agrees that she is wrong. No one is forcing her into the hospital to the treatment. I think she believes she does. She believes that she doesn't belong. Something is wrong with her. That's the tragedy in the episode. It's like, no. These other people are messed up because they're trying to make you be like them. That's the problem. And I think that's the most dangerous moment in any system of condemnation. Not when judgment is spoken, but when the judgment sometimes is believed. When a person stops asking, well, wait a minute, is this true? And then they start asking, how can I fix myself? What can I do? What can I do? Maybe sometimes you're like, you know what? I don't know if the condemnation being thrown on me and the judgments being thrown on me is really accurate or really fits what I supposedly did. I don't know if your standards are right. I don't know what you're telling me I have to do is right. At the end of the episode, Janet is sent away to live with others like her. They're segregated. They're removed from the normal people. Now, I don't think it's a hopeful ending. I think that's, maybe you read it, maybe you see it and you'll go, well, she gets to go be with her own kind. I do not like this. Because guess what? The system remains intact. The definition of normal remains unchanged. The power structure is untouched. Exile is not freedom. It's just relocation. And I think that matters because many cultural and even religious narratives today offer exile as somehow, if You got to go. You just got to go. And it's almost like a good thing. But the system remains in place. And sometimes the system needs to be burned to the stinking ground. Figuratively speaking, metaphorically speaking. Hey, go find your people. Create your own space. Separate from everything else. Now, maybe sometimes separation, sometimes it's treated like separation is sometimes necessary. But guess what? Exile is not redemption in any way, shape, or form. And the Twilight Zone seemed to get that and seemed to demonstrate that and seemed to be saying that. So it's now 2026, so Happy New Year, everyone. It's January 1, 2026. I think this episode presents us a question. So here are my first words in a sense of 2026. What surgeries, what cultural, moral, spiritual, are we being told we must undergo just to belong? What surgeries, what cultural, moral, spiritual things are we being told to do that we must do in order to belong, in order to be acceptable, in order to be doing things the right way? What must you do? What do you have to do? And who benefits from defining normal? Who gets to benefit from defining normal? Because it makes you feel at ease? Because it makes you feel better? Because they make you uncomfortable and you don't like that? Oh no, what are you going to do? The world doesn't live like you. Well, we condemn it, we want it changed, and we want laws passed to prohibit it, and we're not going to allow that here in our town. And if we need to, we'll kill some witches, even though they're not. Who defines what being normal is, and who enforces it? And who disappears when it's enforced? And if you can decide that they're not normal and they've got to change and they've got to conform, what happens when they get the power and they decide you're not normal and you need to disappear? That's why I can't stand that. Allowing people freedom as much as possible and letting people be them is what, to me, and then you can have the debates of what is you think is moral or immoral based on your ideological, philosophical, and religious systems. Maybe the most uncomfortable question is, where have we learned to diagnose ourselves as unacceptable? When you're like, oh, I don't do this. Oh, this, this, unacceptable, unacceptable, unacceptable. Because there is a standard, and you know that. If your weight is this, unacceptable. I'm not normal. I'm grotesque. I got to fix it. And not so for health reasons. You're doing so because of, you don't perceive yourself, because the society has told you. You're a man, you get older, your hair starts thinning, you lose your hair, you feel grotesque, you feel deformed, you feel that you don't belong because, that's what people will say. It's so many issues. Where did we learn to diagnose ourselves as unacceptable? Why are we living according to someone else's standard? Why are we doing this? Why do I have to conform? Why do I have to do this? And religion will do just the same thing. You got to do this, you got to do this, because they tell you to. Now, as I was watching the episode, and what I'm getting ready to say is I don't believe the episode is teaching this. I believe what I just laid out is a good explanation and interpretation of the episode. But there was a little bit of, I could also start thinking of this in a more kind of law gospel perspective, which, I think is, a key theological distinction. I think in the eye of the beholder, what we see or what we're invited into is a world of pure law. The society in the eye of the beholder is governed entirely by law. It's a fixed standard of normal. This is the standard, you will do so or you will be cast out. It's an objective rule imposed from outside of the individual. Hey, here's the standard. You don't get to make the standard. You don't get to decide. The rule comes from outside of you. It's an authority that judges, diagnoses, and condemns. And it's a system that offers correction, but never forgiveness. You will do this, you will do this, you will do this. And if you don't, there isn't forgiveness. There's just exile. There's just condemnation. The law in this episode, the law in this world of this episode of the Twilight Zone, it defines righteousness. This is what a normal person should look like. Any deviation from this, you're not righteous, you're not normal. It demands conformity. No. You must be like this. You don't have a choice. There's no mercy. There's no grace. There's no forgiveness. There's no appeal. You can't do anything. You can't. You can try to explain. You can try to, no. Have you ever been in a situation like that where no matter what you do, you can't appeal, there's no mercy, there's no forgiveness. You just get their stinking silence and they basically like, nope, sorry, that's just the way it is. It's over, it's done because you failed. You didn't conform. You didn't meet perfection. That's the law in this episode. And that is law in its purest form. You must be this way in order to belong. There is no gospel category in the episode. There's no grace. There's no acquittal. There's no declaration of worth apart from compliance. And I think that's why in some ways this episode is very theologically sharp, because that's what the law of God does. It says you must do this or you are condemned. You must be perfect. You must be perfect in your thoughts. You must be perfect in your words. You must be perfect in your actions and what you do and what you undo, what you do and don't do. In every aspect, perfection. The law demands holiness and perfection. And there is no mercy given under the law. You are just condemned. Now, so that's the system, in a sense, or the world in which this episode exists. I, a beholder of Twilight Zone, is pure law. It's just pure law. There's no gospel. Now, poor Janet Tyler, she's the human in the episode that lives under the law. She's not just being oppressed by it. She is convicted and condemned by it. Now, she doesn't argue with the standard. She doesn't do that. She doesn't question the authority. She does not appeal to some kind of intrinsic worth. She accepts the verdict, she believes the diagnosis, and she consents to the supposed cure. So in a roundabout way, she kind of pictures Romans 3. Every mouth must be stopped and the whole world may be held accountable. She is not merely judged by the law, she's absolutely crushed by it. The most devastating effect of the law is not the external punishment, but it's when we finally come to realize I am guilty of the law, that internal agreement, and then that crushes us and destroys us of shame and guilt, and we're broken. Now, in the episode, there is kind of a salvation offered, right? It's a salvation by treatment. I don't want to say surgery, but whatever the treatment involved. The surgery or the treatment is not true healing. It's kind of a works righteousness. You're unacceptable as you are. You may attempt transformation. You're given limited chances. You got to try. Failure is final and acceptance is conditional. Only if you can meet the standard. See, hey, if you can do it, if you'll go through the process, if you'll do this, then maybe you can meet the standard. To me, the whole episode is theological. It's not about medicine. It's about theological. You got to do this. See, if you change enough, you may be declared righteous. If you do enough, if you live good enough, you may be declared righteousness. But it's up to you. You got to go through this. But of course, of course, from a theological standpoint, even if you were to ever, you can never meet righteousness. You can't. This is very important. A lot of people don't understand that even if you are able to conform to certain moral standards, that does not make you righteous. It only makes you conform to a standard. Because righteousness demands more than conformity to an external law. That's what Jesus tried to tell the Pharisees and the Sadducees. No. You got to go way beyond just doing. And no, you've got to obey at a deeper level. You can't even look at a woman with lust. You can't do, it's got to go at a deeper level. And you will never achieve that. No matter how many times you go to church, how many small groups you join, and how many times you go through a discipleship program. Moral effort, anytime a system tries to say moral effort saves or transformation earns belonging or improvement equals worth, no amount of surgery can fix the verdict rooted in condemnation. No amount of surgery, no amount of treatments can fix the verdict which the law gives, which you are condemned, you are a sinner in thought, word, and deed, and in your very nature. Now, the doctors in the episode are kind of lawful, but they're loveless authority. The doctors are calm. They are measured. They're professional. They're not necessarily cruel. They truly believe they're helping. And I think theologically, this represents law divorced from mercy, right? And many churches do this. They may give an accurate diagnosis, but they have no compassion that can override the verdict. They have no compassion that will override the verdict. They don't have any real compassion. They have no authority to forgive, and they have no power to declare someone acceptable apart from, well, you got to change. And if you change, well, then you basically end up in a works-based system. Now, Christianity may diagnose sin correctly. It may, but it's going to prescribe you transformation. Even if they don't say, well, you have to change in order to be saved, they will turn around and just flip it and say, but if you're saved, you'll be transformed. And if you're not transformed, you were never changed. So therefore, you have to be transformed. See, law can be spoken kindly. Law can be spoken religiously. Law can sound spiritual, but law will kill, and it always does. And exile is not redemption. The ending of this show is not hopeful. Janet finds others like her, but the law still stands. The standard is unchanged. The condemnation remains valid. The system is never challenged. It's not salvation, it's segregation. So in theological terms, she's not justified, she's not reconciled, she's merely relocated. I think the brilliance of this episode is that in some ways it stopped short. See, a true gospel interruption would require a verdict spoken apart from change. Hey, because theologically, it's a forensic justification, right? You are declared that you are righteous, that you are forgiven, and that you are saved without any change. Nothing changed. When I am declared to be justified, when I'm declared to be righteous and holy, nothing changes in me at all. There is no change. The only thing changes is my legal standing before God. That's why we call it forensic justification. That's why we believe we are saved by an imputed righteousness. Imputed does not transform me, does not change me. I am still as grotesquely deformed and condemned by the law as I was before you wrapped me up in the bandages. The gospel gives a verdict apart from change. Acceptance in Christ is grounded in the legal declaration that I am just and holy because of what God and what Christ has done for me. I am not given acceptance based on conformity. The gospel isn't conform and be accepted. No, it is I'm accepted in the beloved because of what Christ has done. I'm now a child of God. I've been adopted and made a child of God. I'm eternally secure. And that has nothing to do with what I will do, can do, should do, may do, but what Christ has done. And the gospel says, it doesn't say you're the problem. The gospel says, I have saved you. I have redeemed you from the curse of the law. But the episode does not give us that. The sermon, think of it this way. This episode of the Twilight Zone is not a sermon. It's an indictment. It shows what happens when only law reigns, when standards are absolute, when mercy doesn't exist, where grace seems to be impossible. And I think it makes the absence of then the gospel deafening. I think most Christians' treatment of culture, the way we want to treat culture is we say it's deformed, it's grotesque, and then we want it to change. We want it to conform to our standards. See, the episode refuses, or the episode kind of puts a mirror to Christianity. You do the same thing. You tell everyone that they're grotesquely deformed, and then you want change. You want them to do this, and you want laws passed, and you want them to act like good little boys and girls. There's no redemption in the episode. I think in many cases there's no redemption in the church. But the episode does what the law does. It exposes, it condemns, it silences, and it strips away hopes. In some ways, the eye of the beholder functions exactly like the law does in Scripture. It shows us the world we create when acceptance depends on worth, and by doing so, it leaves us longing, not for a better treatment, but for a different world altogether. Get me out of this stinking place. Get me to a different world. And as we are now in 2026, this episode maybe presses a number of questions I've given because of this. What voice is defining your worth? What verdict has already been spoken? Don't listen to anybody else. Don't listen to yourself. Don't listen to your church. Don't listen to pastors. Don't listen to Christians. Listen to God. And the verdict is, in Christ Jesus, you are a new creature. Old things are passed away. All things have become new. In your positional standing before Him, you have been declared perfect, righteous. You've been adopted as a child of God. You are eternally secure. You have been forgiven. Your sins have been removed as far as the east is from the west. Has nothing to do about what you do or don't do. That is true of you no matter what you do, no matter what you don't do, because it's all done by what Christ has done for you. Don't listen to the church that says, no, 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 no. If you don't do this, then you were never saved. Don't listen to them. They're liars. Unless you want to go back to the Roman system and believe you're saved by an infused righteousness. But an imputed righteousness declares you to be perfect and righteous, irregardless of what you do. They can take off the bandage. They can drag you around the church and say, look at this sinner. Look at this vile sinner. Let's throw them out because they don't do what we tell them to do. Ignore them. Their system is flawed and broken. Listen to Christ that says, where are your accusers? I don't accuse you. You've been forgiven because of what I have done. If the verdict you hear in your head about Christianity or about your salvation depends on some kind of conformity, then you're still on the operating table, okay? You're still going through the treatment. You're still under the law. The law says you're guilty, you're guilty, you're guilty. You must do this, you must do that. The gospel says, no, 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 no. You have been set free from the condemnation of sin, from the power of sin to condemn you. You are forgiven, you have been adopted, you are holy and you are righteous, not because of anything you will ever do, but because of what Christ has done for you. And the church gets that so backwards. Rod Serling once said that the Twilight Zone was meant to hold up a mirror to humanity, not to show us monsters, but to show us ourselves. So now that we're here in 2026, maybe this episode, Eye of the Beholder from the Twilight Zone, reminds us that the future rarely arrives with explosions. It arrives with approval, with applause, with paperwork, with calm voices saying, this is for your own good. And sometimes the most important thing we can do at the start of a new year is not ask how to change, but maybe ask, who's telling me I need to? Do you demand perfection? Is there no mercy, no grace, no second chances? Well, if that's the system you throw on other people, well, maybe someday someone will put that system against you. The eye of the beholder started off the 2-day marathon on Heroes and Icons channel. Again, you can go get a subscription to Friendly TV, FRNDLY, very cheap subscription. Heroes and Icons channel is on there, plus a lot of others. And you can hit record right now. You can record the rest of the 2-day marathon. You'll have plenty of episodes in your DVR. And I think you may even be able to go back in the guide. You go to the guide and go backwards. I think you can even go back and look at the old episodes. I think you can. I don't know. Some of the channels allow it. Some of them don't. A lot to chew on. A lot to think about. Society, ourselves, the church, systems, conformity, power, who gets to decide, the gospel, law. I gave you a buffet of things to think about. So I will say Happy New Year. Thanks for listening. Thanks for walking with me from 2025 into 2026. We have a year in front of us. I don't know what happens. I don't know where this podcast goes. I don't know what twists and turns. I don't know if we make it to the end of 2026. I don't know. Some of you have given me ideas for, or at least I think one individual sent me an email of something they want me to do in 2026. I will definitely see what I can do. A lot of times I just kind of go and whatever happens, happens. If you do have any ideas, I'm always willing to listen. All right. Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year. And Eye of the Beholder, Twilight Zone. You just heard a 60-minute discussion based off but a 22-minute episode. All right. That's what happens when you listen to this podcast. God bless.